Sorry, Shay. Kári is an independent researcher and a folklorist who holds a master's in pre-Christian religions from the University of Iceland. Since last year, Kári has published 2 books on Icelandic magic and folk practice, ranging from the 17th to 19th centuries, including material on the current presentation. And sorry, that is my very loud espresso machine. Kári, when you're ready, you can take it away.
Thank you. And thank you for having me again. Back again with a different topic. This one is an interesting manuscript that I've been looking at for quite a time now. And it's this Grimoire with the shelf name AM434D12MO, which means duodecimo. And this is a presentation from a folkloristic perspective. But the story behind this manuscript is that in the late 17th and early 18th century, the Icelandic scholar, how can I flip the slides? Oh yeah, the Icelandic scholar, Árni Magnússon, collected numerous Icelandic manuscripts. Their contents makes for an invaluable source of information on Icelandic and Nordic history, not least among them the sagas, eddas, law texts, and annals. But one of the manuscripts in Árni's collection has to date received rather limited scholarly attention, which is this small and thin grimoire with a shell mark AM434D duodecimo, and is dated to the late 16th to early 17th century. Árni received this small manuscript in 1697, and with it came a note that simply says, "I bring you in a good trust a very old and small calfskin manuscript that contains knowledge on how people in the past communicated and behaved around semi-homo or huldufolk, or the hidden folk, as we name them. Furthermore, the information on how to perform terram sigillatam, or earth sigil, is included. And then this note is signed by H. Thorne S. 1697. But until recently, this manuscript has never been translated nor published in its entirety until I published it last year, both providing the original text and translation with an introduction as a bonus material in the book Galdrabók, Forbidden Icelandic Folk Magic, published by Hildir last December. But perhaps the reason why this hasn't been published so far is because this manuscript contains a lot of abbreviation and strange abbreviations, likely personal abbreviations. So I consulted with fellow scholars, including assistant professor in Árnastofnun, Haukur Þorgeirsson, and this is as good as we can get. But of course, I made a disclaimer that sometimes we simply don't know what the manuscript says. But we are quite confident here and there. But question can be asked, why were grimoires popular during this time, and where do they come from, if we can say so? But as the runologist Alicia Bauer has underlined, and I'm sure Roberto and Georgia will say as well later today, that is, Icelandic grimoires were not created in an isolation. Here you can see a 15th century Greek manuscript that reminds us greatly to other known Icelandic magic symbols. So Icelandic grimoires often exhibited numerous similarities with other European texts. But I'm not going to discuss that in details, as Roberto and Georgia will elaborate more than that after my talk. We must, however, remember that Icelandic magic in the 17th century was not entirely uniquely created or preserved unchanged since settlement age. It changes and adapts to social norms and cultural needs. What is interesting, however, is that the manuscript that I will be discussing today has an interesting blend of both local and imported European traditions. But although small in size, the manuscript contents are quite unique, even remarkable. For example, readers will quickly notice that it contains striking images of humanoid figures with line passing through their eyes and possibly through their ears as well. These figures are presented alongside symbols and abbreviated letters that prove difficult to decipher. The manuscript textual material is even more intriguing. Their center notes tells us that part of the manuscript addresses on how to approach the huldfolk, the hidden folk, which are commonly understood as the álfar or the elves. The álfar are visible in textual sources from 13th century into the late 17th century when Árni Magnússon received the Jarðskinna manuscript, this one. But a great deal of material regarding the álfar is also recorded in the late 19th, early 20th century as well, which underlines the álfar in this manuscript being as living folkloristic beings. But if we look at the first pages, it starts with margt ungu mönnum frítt að fremja gaman. Þessa eftirfarandi list hafa þeir gömlu brúkað þó nú fáir kunni. Many are the things that people like to conjure. This aforementioned art was conjured by the old folks, although few today know how to practice that. And then straight away we go into this opening, beautiful opening. And it starts with Sæll jarðbúi segðu mig fréttir, ég háþórn á þig kalla, upp stattu, ég vil finna þig, láttu mig sjá þú liggur hér í, upp stattu þá ég í svefni, meinlausislega við mig skaltu tala. Ef þú dauður ert ei fyrir löngu, ljáðu til eyrun og láttu mig sjá þig. Ég skal prísa þig upp frá þessu og í atvikum öllum blíður ef þú unnir mér og frá segir flestum hlutir mér í fréttavíl. Særi ég þig eða í fyrir allra kvikindanöfn og verkan allan ver. Upp þú standir þá ég sofnaður í hóarð við mig talir, veri svo sem segi. So it's a little bit powerful how it's recited, but with English translation, it's greetings, earth dweller. Tell me news or prophecy. I call upon you. Up, you shall stand. I want to find you. Let me see that you lay in here. Up, you shall stand when I am sleeping. Peacefully you shall converse to me. If you died not long ago, lend me your ears and let me see you. I will praise you from now on and be in any instance kind of you, if you like me and to me speak about most things that I want to know. I conjure you in or for the name of all creatures, and may this be. Up, you shall stand when I have fallen asleep. In friendly terms you should talk to me. Be it so as I say. But the álfar are mentioned in Eddic poetry and in the prose era, along with their association with their Vanir gods. But in later Icelandic folk belief, they gradually formed stronger connections to hills and rocks present in the landscape. In 19th century Icelandic folk tales, the álfar, whom often are labeled as hidden folk or huldufolk as well, are often skilled craftsmen and are described as human-like in size and often wear elaborate and elegant clothing. In folklore, Icelandic folklore, humans rarely recognize this being as álfar. Instead, they generally come to realize this as the tale progresses. Typically, these beings want to be left alone, although occasionally there is an exchange between humans and the álfar, such as when an álfkona or elf woman asks for help during childbirth, which the elves reward with an artifact or luck of some sort. Various folktales mention their appearance during Yuletide or New Year's Eve, when they leave the wilderness to visit farms. But occasionally, they appear in people's dreams with the intention of delivering a message of some sort. This can take the form of a request to do or not to do something, or to aid people to perform a certain task or to deliver prophecy. This folk memory can arguably be encountered in the Jarðskinna manuscript, which mentions a method of how to ask and receive news or information through dreams from a jarðbúi or the earth dweller by reciting a certain formula. But dreams have played a large role in the mind of Icelanders since the medieval times. Around 530 accounts of dreams can be seen in Old Icelandic literature, an indication of their significance and importance in folk belief. In a notable example, receiving information or knowledge through dreams from a dead person inside a grave mound can, for example, be seen in the late 13th to early 14th century short tale Þorleifs þáttur Jarðskalds, wherein a man named Hallbjörn rests on Þorleifi Jarðskald's grave mound in order to learn how to become a great poet. Later, when Hallbjörn falls asleep on the grave mound, he dreams that Þorleifur opens his grave and stands up and teaches him poetry through dream. But even until recent times, dreams played a large role in the minds of 19th and 20th century Icelanders, and nature spirits such as Álfar og Huldufólk and even dead people are said to visit people in dreams to deliver fateful messages. So sleep was certainly an important state for someone to be in to recite communication from these beings. It can be said that this manuscript provides therefore a unique insight into a living folklore of the Álfar in the 17th century, clearly echoing folk belief before and after the manuscript composition. The invocation seen in the manuscript involves spoken words and potentially some kind of performance close to the place where the process takes place. But let's look at the next pages of the manuscript. Here we have 4 drawings, ergo sipi atur klemi kemi. Some might think this reminds them of the Sator Square, although it seems to be somewhat different. So if anyone knows what this is, please let me know. But here it says that for these 4 drawings are familiar to me. Sit on a hill and then place 3 down, I guess 3 images, then turn 3 images down. And then read, under my feet, you shall then turn for me, arguably, or sleep. We don't really know. Carve and then flip all of the image facing up and walk around the first image. It's very obscure. So we don't really know straight away. We don't really know what's going on here. What's interesting about this is that here we are expected to know the reader is expected to know what's going on here. We don't get any indication like how to perform this or what to do here and that, or this is not how to create a potion or how to create a love spell, or no, we're expected, or the reader is expected to know what's going on here. And then if we go to the next one, somewhat similar taking place here. It straight away shows an image of an object that is described to be a copper rod. This shall be a brass or a copper rod, and it shall stand to the ground as shown here up to the chin. Carve 9 blood staffs on the other side of the rod. So I guess it's this ergop sipif oa that says here. You're supposed to carve this on the rod, and then it says, and do not carry it into your farm after that. One might ask why. Likely because the rod is enchanted. It's dangerous. It's not safe to carry around ordinary humans. So yeah, you carve 9 blood staffs on this copper rod, and you keep it away from your farm. And then you carve some devoted runes, arguably, with a head and a tail on the rod around the earth of prophecy. And then you place it there for 3 nights, and after that, it is for no use. Again, very obscure. You have a rod, you use a head and a tail, and you place it around the earth of prophecy. It's enchanted, you should keep it away from your farm. And after 3 nights, it's of no use. All right, good to know. What does it say next? Next, it's talking about a cream, like a healing cream. So take from a graveyard as many straw of grass as you want, and take them to a hill where you know land spirits live, Huldufólk. So basically, the manuscript is here making a clear distinction between people buried in graveyards and people living inside hills. And basically, what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to take straw from the graveyard and replace them with straws on the hill where people live. And after that, you take a pot or a vessel and you let the night dew of the grass from the hill where the people live inside leak into it. And then after that, you're supposed to walk on the top of the Turmount and face east and recite for the gods, um, for the gods and the grass, no, sorry, for the grass and for the godly natural behavior and for the fox spirits that live in here. I wish that this grass and this water become a restorative for all healings that I want to use it for. In the name of Valföður and father of the slain, both Odin and Ása Thor, you, and you I offer. All right, and what's the last charm? Then it gets quite obscure. These words should be carved on an oak tablet with a copper stylus with the following words. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So this is a clear reference to Psalm of David, 24th Psalm of David. But then we see this strange-looking cross, and on that cross it says, "Let wind stand on you, and the blood ring of the mouse should be smeared here in between." And then it says, carve this twice and then flip it. And yeah, what's that about? Open the question again. And then this manuscript ends with nice poetry. Víðast hljóta virðing knýr, vísnans maður kendur. Sávelum sem búning býr og best og réttur stendur, endur. So respect knocks at your door if you are a man of knowledge. He knows what to do and is rightful in his way. The end. But what is interesting is that, and also this grimoire is that the typical instruction that you see in all other grimoires are lacking here. But we have an interesting account written by Jón Eggertsson. He wrote this manuscript, Pappafall number 64, written between 1686 and 1687, where he's talking about contemporary Icelandic beliefs about the Álfar and explores ways to contact them. And he says that, and do notice this is before Árni Magnússon received the Jarðskinna manuscript. He says that an old saying holds that anyone who is splay-footed, that is, his foot, their feet is facing away from each other, is better suited to enter hills. It is also said that those wishing to enter hills or cliffs use wooden planks with specific carvings, placing them on their knees, while holding a copper rod inscribed with symbols. The rod should be struck against the ground at the desired spot, where an opening is expected to appear. Other rituals are also performed as part of this process. And then he talks also about that other examples are if people want to contact them through dreams. To initiate contact, one should craft both a male and a female figure, inscribe them with specific words with a knife. These figures, along with a specially prepared copper rod bearing inscriptions made with a mouse blood, notice mouse blood, should be in a hidden secret place for several nights away from other humans. Remember the enchanted rod? For the next steps, these figures are placed under the individual's head while sleeping, and the copper rod is set in the grass as previously described. So if you remember, you place it, the copper rod, place it there for 3 nights, and after that it is of no use. And then he says, it is thought that through this process, the hidden folk will appear in dreams and reveal unknown or secret things. But it's worth keeping in mind that this material comes to us from a time and a place with intense folk belief, was ever present. But some of this material therefore reflects then living folk practices for which people at the time would need no explanation. It is reasonable to expect that they would likely recognize and understand certain elements, formulas, concepts, and axes described in this manuscript without any further explanations. It is therefore no surprise that we might not fully understand what is taking place in its invocation presented in the manuscript. But at the same time, a comparative approach allows us to detect patterns and altered ideas in folklore material that both predates and postdates it. Some elements in those invocations reflect notably old beliefs and indicate some cultural memory, but at the same time, we also detect the influence of much more recent European occult currents, such as the written magical stuff seen in the manuscripts and other texts that became popular in Europe. Thank you very much.